That summer felt like it had been stretched out on purpose, like time itself had decided to slow down and watch us closely. When our parents left for their usual anniversary trip, the house didn't just become quieter. It became something else entirely, something heavier, something that made every small sound echo a little longer than it should. And it left just the three of us, Dennis, Kyle, and me, to fill that silence in our own different ways. Dennis, the oldest at 23, carried himself with effortless confidence, like nothing in the world could bother him. While Kyle, only 18, stayed tucked into his own quieter world, always with a book or lost in thought. And then there was me, Hillary, stuck in the middle, as always at 21, trying to balance the energy between them. Trying to keep things normal even when normal started to feel like something we were slowly losing. At first everything went exactly as expected. Dennis wasted hours on the couch, flipping channels and scrolling. Kyle kept to himself with his books, and I moved from room to room trying to keep the house in order. Pretending the silence didn't bother me, pretending that the emptiness didn't feel like it was pressing in from all sides. But by the fourth day something shifted, not all at once, but slowly, like a crack forming in glass. Barely visible at first, yet impossible to ignore once you saw it. And that night as we sat around the dining table finishing the last of some takeout, none of us really talked. Not because we didn't have anything to say, but because we didn't know how to say it. Until Dennis suddenly broke the quiet, saying the house felt too dead and that we needed to do something. Anything to shake off the strange mood that had settled over us. And even though Kyle responded with sarcasm and I questioned him out of habit, there was something different in Dennis's tone. Something more genuine, like he actually meant it this time. So we agreed to spend the evening together in the living room, starting with a movie that Dennis insisted on picking. Something loud and ridiculous that we all ended up laughing at more than watching. And for a while it worked. The laughter came easily, the tension eased, and it almost felt like things were back to normal. But when the movie ended and the room grew quieter again, that feeling returned, not exactly uncomfortable but unfamiliar. Like we were all suddenly aware of each other in a way we hadn't been before, noticing small things. Like the way Kyle would glance up from his thoughts and quickly look away, or how Dennis's jokes carried a sharper edge. And I tried to ignore it, telling myself it was just the boredom, just the result of being stuck in the same space. But deep down, I knew something had changed, something subtle but real. And as the night went on, that awareness only grew stronger, until even the simplest interactions felt loaded with meaning. While Dennis and Kyle fell back into their routines, though even those routines felt slightly off now, like they no longer fit the same way they used to. And later that afternoon, Dennis appeared in the kitchen with that familiar grin and suggested we play a game. That night, something simple like Truth or Dare. And while I initially brushed it off as childish, there was a challenge in his voice that made it hard to refuse. And Kyle, after a moment of hesitation, agreed as well. So that evening we gathered again in the living room, sitting closer than we usually would, setting rules that were meant to keep things light, but somehow only added to the sense that this wasn't just a game. And at first it was exactly what you'd expect: harmless questions, ridiculous dares, laughter that felt genuine and grounding, like we were trying to hold on to something familiar. But as the rounds continued, the questions became more personal, not inappropriate, but revealing in ways that made us pause, forcing us to look at each other more honestly than we ever had before. And it was in those moments that I started to notice the real shift, not in what we said, but in how we reacted. The way Dennis watched for reactions with more focus, the way Kyle's quiet nature gave way to surprising openness, and the way I found myself caught between them, not just as the mediator anymore, but as someone trying to understand what this new dynamic meant. And by the time the game slowed down and the room fell quiet again, it felt like we had uncovered pieces of ourselves we hadn't intended to share, leaving us sitting there in thoughtful silence, unsure of what to do next. And it was Kyle who finally spoke, quietly but with a seriousness that made us pay attention, saying that maybe this wasn't just about boredom or passing time, but about something deeper, about how we had all been changing without noticing it, growing into different versions of ourselves, while still holding on to old roles that no longer fit. And Dennis, for once, didn't joke or brush it off, instead nodding in agreement, admitting that he had felt it too. That strange sense that things weren't quite the same anymore. And as I listened to them, I realized that the tension I had been feeling wasn't something to be feared, but understood. A sign that we were all stepping into a new phase of our lives, one where we couldn't rely on old patterns to define us. And in that moment, the uncertainty that had been weighing on me shifted into something else, something closer to clarity. Because even though we didn't have all the answers, even though we didn't fully understand what had changed or where it would lead, we were at least acknowledging it together, and that mattered more than anything else. And as the night finally came to an end and we each went our separate ways, there was still a sense of unease lingering. But it was no longer the kind that made me want to turn away. Instead, it felt like the beginning of something. A quiet understanding that whatever changes were happening, we would face them as we always had, not perfectly, but together. And for the first time since our parents had left, the house didn't feel quite so empty anymore.